Ruben Vardanyan.
Mr. Vardanyan, thank you for being with us.
Troika.
Very colourful character. Undoubtedly very talented person.
Ruben Vardanyan, Aurora co-founder.
And also he portrayed himself as a philanthropist.
Ruben Vardanyan.
Ruben Vardanyan.
Ruben Vardanyan.
Ruben Vardanyan. And he had good contacts, he was friends with George Clooney.
Ruben Vardanyan is fascinating, together with Veronica Zonab, in terms of how easy it is to fool the world.
Ruben Vardanyan in sanctions in Ukraine.
Vardanyan was a member of the board of Russian company Volga-Dnieper.
It's a company, how we say, it's Putin wings.
I saw a single name that was receiving vast amounts of money from that exact company, and it was Mr. Ruben Vardanyan.
In truth, it was a truly brilliant crime.
He is criminal for Europe, for NATO countries, and for Ukraine.
Ruben Vardanyan did not denounce his passport. This is a complete fake.
Ruben
Vardanyan is a global leader that has dedicated himself to serving others.
As a Trojan horse of Putin.
The charges against Ruben Vardanyan include war crimes, crimes against humanity, terrorism, financing of terrorism.
The question of who Ruben Vardanyan is a fascinating question, and there's no clear answer to this question.
Ruben Vardanyan is not in real Armenian man. He's Russian man.
Originally, family of Vardanyan is not from Karabakh. He is from Armenia. His father and mother were living in Yerevan. And after that, he went to Russia and started his business and political activity.
His image back in the 1990s could be perceived as within the realm of the complete plausibility and positivity. Because he was the face of Western banking in Russia, and Troika Dialogue is a very good example of that sort of endeavor.
Troika.
Директоров компании «Тройка Диалог» Рубеном Варданяном. Он гость нашей студии.
Рубеном Варданяном. Рубен Карленович, здравствуйте еще раз.
Back in Soviet time, there was many minuses, but it was one big plus. You had a clear body of future. And for me or for my parents before, it was clear, okay, I need to become a student of university, I will graduate, I will get PhD, and I will start my career.
Ruben Vardanyan from Troika Dialogue believes that Russia is in a very good position right now.
Next guest is Ruben Vardanyan. He is the chairman of Troika Dialogue, a Russian investment bank.
Ruben Vardanyan is chairman of the board of directors and CEO of Troika Dialogue Group, also one of the most richest men in Russia today.
Мне очень приятно осознавать, что наша компания признается одной из лучших на нашем рынке. Не только клиентами, с которых мы работаем, но и конкурентами, с кем мы работаем каждый день.
So Troika Dialogue was seen at the time as quite different to other Russian banks. Troika was professional. It was run by Ruben Vardanyan, who had extremely good links into the West.
Ruben Vardanyan, thank you very much for speaking with us. Tell us about Troika Dialogue.
The Troika Dialogue, one of the first investment bank, which was established in January 1991. We will celebrate January our 20 years anniversary.
He was seen as probably the more acceptable face of Russian finance within Western banking circles within the US and Paris and London. And he had good contacts. You know, he was friends with George Clooney. He had a big public profile, actually, within Russia at the time, and was very much seen as the acceptable face of new Russian business, particularly by the West. So he was responsible for helping establish a very prestigious business school, Skolkovo.
For me, when I started with no capital, no experience, I knew the only thing that can build my reputation. I knew how to work with the foreigners, and I understand how Russians mean things. And I was trying to be best to both sides.
Very colorful character, undoubtedly very talented person, undoubtedly a person capable of convincing others, and also he portrayed himself as a philanthropist.
In the 1990s, when they had this new money coming their way, they kind of played with it. It's like going to a toy shop where you can buy any toy you want. It's an image building for themselves in a certain way.
What we're seeing is a new type of actor who is not a criminal in the way that we think of gangster culture or the thieves in law that were the dominant criminals of the Soviet period.
And I want to share with you, all my great friends, Armenian and Armenian, about why we're doing this and why I'm doing this.
But what we're looking at is somebody with financial power, political power, and connections.
Mikhail Gorbachev's dreams of holding the Soviet Union together may have received a death blow today.
The Soviet Union no longer exists.
Russia missed the opportunity to create a state based on law. And this was absolutely essential in the aftermath of the fall of communism. Without law, the transformation of the country from a state-run economy to a market-based economy would inevitably lead to gangsterism. And that's exactly what happened. And that gangsterism spawned a group of people who would use any means to hold on to power, to hold on to money. The epidemic in Russia of contract killings, internecine murders, the latest people were thrown out of windows or, quote unquote, committed suicide by shooting themselves.
Many oligarchs in Russia seem to fall out of windows. So it's not a good idea to sit near an open window in Russia.
In Russia today, the clear winner of the Russian presidential election, Vladimir Putin, began to establish the Putin era.
The oligarchs were important under Yeltsin when property was being carved up. But under Putin, they serve the regime, and they hold their wealth at the behest of the regime.
Vladimir Putin, the career spy, talks about establishing what he calls a dictatorship of the law, fight corrupt bureaucrats, and strengthen the central government.
Клянусь при осуществлении полномочий президента Российской Федерации.
When Putin came to power in 2000, he brought along his own people, and many of them got rich.
Nobody gets rich unless Kremlin has agreed that they're going to get rich. So you are with Kremlin or you're not.
And they can be told to take certain steps economically by the regime, and they have no choice but to comply.
The oligarchy that supports President Putin almost all rose to power using criminals, and they've used criminals to sustain their power, their influence, and maintain their property. The Russian state also uses criminals to carry out its wishes.
Death threats, kidnapping threats, arrest warrants, Interpol, red notices, lawsuits, surveillance, publicity, everything. It's a full-time job just fending it off.
Browder was once the biggest foreign investor in Russia.
Bill Browder was one of the early investors in Russia when they started to move towards a market economy.
I was once the largest foreign investor in Russia. I had $4.5 billion invested in the country. I was hoping that it would become a normal country, that things would go from chaos to a little bit less chaos. And for a period of time it did. But what I discovered was that Russia never built in the rule of law, never built in proper property rights. So I exposed massive crimes connected to oligarchs and massive crimes connected to the government of Russia. And by doing so, I angered a lot of very important people, and I was expelled from the country in 2005. After my expulsion, my office in Moscow was raided by the police. They seized all of our documents. A young lawyer named Sergei Magnitsky began an investigation to understand why they had confiscated the documents.
So I worked with Sergei for more than 10 years, every day in the office. Eventually, he ended up managing my office on a day-to-day basis. Our offices were raided by 25 officers, and they wanted to take all the documents for our client, Bill Browder's companies, and they didn't really have any legal reason for doing this, so it was all very suspect. And as we tried to figure out what was going on, Sergei kept investigating, and then eventually he found out that the whole purpose of the raid had been to get these documents so they could control the companies and arrange fraudulent tax refunds, where they eventually stole $230 million from their own government. In truth, it was a truly brilliant crime. They took control of Hermitage's companies, but they robbed their own treasury. And that's what Sergei found out. And Sergei Magnitsky should have been a hero, and instead,
he was arrested by those same officials, put in pretrial detention, and then tortured for 358 days to try to get him to withdraw his testimony. He refused all the way through.
And so they really made it terrible for him. And then his health broke down. They just pushed it to that point and let him go critical.
And on November 16, 2009, Sergei Magnitsky was murdered in his cell in prison in Russia.
They beat the hell out of him, handcuffed him, and left him to die. Which is, in my book, murder.
He was 37 years old. He left a wife and 2 children.
One good thing to come out of this is what Bill and myself and our team has done has completely changed the landscape of how people look at corruption.
And so I came up with an idea, which is to freeze the assets and ban the travel in the West of the people who killed Sergei Magnitsky. And that became known as the Magnitsky Act. And now there are 35 countries in the world that have Magnitsky Acts.
Еще следствие не закончилось. Еще непонятно, кто там виноват, кто прав, какая там ситуация. Это чисто политический недружественный акт.
If you think about this, $250 million was stolen from the Russian treasury. And the Russian government has never asked a foreign country to trace the money. And when we started tracing that money, what do we find? I mean, we find money going into the pockets of some of Putin's actual close personal friends, right? So of course he's protecting that system.
The Magnitsky case exposed a lot of different channels of money laundering. And we made such an international scandal out of this. And there were other scandals in parallel.
And we discovered what I want to call laundromats. They're dedicated structures to move billions of dollars in and out of Russia.
So the Troika Laundromat is a huge banking league. At the time, I think it was one of the biggest in the world, 1.3 million files, coming out of Lithuania, a bank there called UKO, many of them relating back to a Russian investment bank called Troika Dialog.
So the interesting thing is Troika Dialog was a really big, respected investment bank in Russia. And yet they were the mastermind behind this one laundromat that was working.
What the Troika Laundromat allowed us to see was end-to-end. So who was putting money in to the laundromat and what it was being spent on at the other end. And the information was brought to us by a couple of newsrooms that we'd worked with before. So one of them is called the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, and the other was a Lithuanian group.
I never imagined it was happening on such a huge scale. The amount of money there, the scope of the network, and the variety of operations was just mind-blowing. We had a massive leak obtained by myself and by Paul from OCCRP. And when it comes to money laundering and Lithuania, Romanov's bank was the principal thing to target if you want to go after money laundering.
So what we were looking for when we began examining the data was criminal money, because we think this is a money laundering network, but what are the crimes that it's laundering the proceeds of? And follow that money through and you can see what happens.
UKO Bank was absolutely vital for the scheme. We saw multiple companies being set up by Troika Dialog, and those very same companies would open accounts at UKO, and what we saw was, well, the technical term is actually spin cycle. We saw that those companies interact with each other and they mix massive amounts of money in a huge chain of transactions.
Money from legitimate, illegitimate sources goes in, all gets mixed together, and then it comes out the other side. And when it comes out the other side, you don't know whose money it was that went in. And that's how it works. So that's how it's cleaned.
Nested corporations, where there's one corporation inside another, and so to find who is ultimately behind this activity is often difficult or sometimes nearly impossible.
At first, we had no idea who was behind it. The key element was a banking statement from a company called Qantas. It was a part of the scheme designed by the people from Troika Dialog, and it was an essential part. Qantas division was basically the biggest vehicle from moving money from point A to point Z, with multiple stops on the way. By going through the data from Qantas, I saw a single name that was receiving vast amounts of money from that exact company, and it was Mr. Ruben Vardanyan. I never imagined a Lithuanian bank can be that instrumental for that many very influential people from Russia.
And then you get to see where it's spent. One of my favourite findings was money spent by one of Troika's shareholders, Valentin Zavadnikov. He decided to spend 70 million euros passing through the Troika Laundromat. to run his 2 luxury yachts, motor yachts, called Celestial Hope and Quinta Essentia.
Lots of money going to Spain to purchase real estate, and the Spanish prosecutor has frozen about 25 million euros of Spanish real estate.
Interesting investments, including yachts, including fancy properties in Spain, including expensive artworks.
Or it'll buy a Rolls Royce or a vineyard in France or pay a shipbuilder to commission a new yacht.
And all the other things you can imagine. I found one case particularly interesting, and it was directly connected to Sergei Roldugin, who was the principal character in the Panama Papers investigation, and who was and still is a member of the Putin inner circle. And in his case, we had a totally fascinating model of moving money from point A to point B. So we saw 16 compensations designed to move exactly $11.6 million. And of course, in any normal bank, that wouldn't go through. But in Ukio, it did. We saw people related to financial institutions, we saw people related to politics, like the president of Cyprus, for instance. And of course, he was really unhappy with OCCRP's reporting on his connections to the Troika Laundromat.
Cyprus is a Russian offshore zone for tax evasion, for money laundering. It's a joke, such a joke, that Cyprus was like the 3rd or 4th foreign investor in Ukraine and Russia. Why? Not because Cyprus was investing, because this was dirty money going from Russia, Ukraine to Cyprus. It was cleaned up and then went back. And yet Cyprus was allowed to join the European Union.
Of course, we've seen multiple cases of other people and other financial institutions, mostly in Europe, who would be handling that money. The most shocking case for myself was the revelations we found connected to Erich Rebasso, an Austrian lawyer who was knowingly working for Russian clients and facilitating money laundering, and he gave himself up. He went to the police, he claimed he's handling dirty money from Russia in an attempt to seek protection, I guess. He disappeared and he was killed in a rather brutal manner. And we saw multiple traces of Rebasso companies in the Troika Laundromat.
You would think of Austria as this beautiful landscape, beautiful people, you know. It's totally corrupt from these Russian oligarchs.
So we're talking about $4.6 billion over an 8-year period, starting in 2004 until the whole operation was shut down, when Ukio was shut down in 2012.
We saw all those suspicious transactions being flagged, but unfortunately at the time, the principal authority in charge of combating money laundering was also related to Vladimir Romanov.
Atėjęs į tarnybą, žinojau apie šios tarnybos uždarumą, apie šios tarnybos atskirų asmenų ryšį su ūkio banku per rafinuotus kyšius. Tai turėdamas šios duomenis ir aišku tarnybos reorganizavimo tikslą, visų pirma, reorganizuojant atsikratėme to palikimo.
And one of the crazy things he did, in a desperate attempt to prevent the bank from falling, was set up a political party and run for parliament. It was a disaster. He would gather celebrities, he would gather players from the basketball team he owned, and shortly after the election, the bank went down. All of a sudden, we learned that Vladimir Romanov is in Moscow. While the bank is taken over by the government, while there's an actual criminal investigation going on, he gets the permission to leave for some medical procedures in Russia. And of course, he never came back.
Lithuanian television is reporting that prosecutors in the country have issued an arrest warrant for the Hearts majority shareholder Vladimir Romanov.
Ir norėčiau akcentuoti vieną momentą, kad esu įsitikinęs, kad pono Romanovo pabėgimas iš Lietuvos tai buvo neatsitiktinumas, o tai buvo specialiai surežisuota finansinių nusikaltimų tarnybos vadovybė operacija.
It was one of the craziest things in my entire career. It still is. I still can't understand how they let him go.
So Vardanyan told us that he thought that the bank knew who its clients were, and he insisted he was completely unaware that Troika companies had received funds relating to any frauds. I mean, Vardanyan's claims to not know anything do stretch credibility because they were either doing it without his knowledge or they were doing it with his knowledge. But we also see that some of his own money came through this same network of companies. What we're saying is that money that he was spending was coming out of the same companies that Magnitsky money was going into.
Well, the connection between what Sergei uncovered and the Troika Laundromat is that the money that Sergei discovered was stolen from the treasury flowed through the laundromat to get out of Russia and ended up in the pockets of some very powerful Russian officials. So that's the connection.
So in the Magnitsky case, we discovered that Cyprus and Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia were major transit points of money before it left those countries and went to the countries like France and the UK and the United States.
We were able to prove that the money would come from the Russian taxpayers. And that's the evidence showing that the regime is actually stealing from its people.
You are reputed to have a very strong or maybe comfortable relationship with the current government in Russia and with the president himself. How would you describe that relationship?
Definitely the government see the Troika as very valuable instruments for attracting investment. And we are doing a lot of good things. We're organizing a lot of things which help Russia in general promote Russia outside of country.
Look, all of these guys are involved in questionable stuff. I mean, Alexei Navalny, who got killed for doing all these exposés, did an expose on Vardanyan, where it looked like Vardanyan was paying off the president of Tatarstan, and he documented it perfectly. So they're all these guys. I mean, none of them are really clean.
Are you alone in Russia?
No, if I was alone, I would not be successful, right? You can see myself sitting here and you interviewing me with showing, but I'm not alone.
But what I'm happy about is the fact that our reporting finally led to multiple cases of impact. But unfortunately, the decision makers in the West were reluctant to take stronger steps. That reluctance to take decisive measures was one of the reasons why they were able to fund the war against Ukraine.
He's a classic example of someone who was very keen to surround himself with people from the cultural world. And also to create a certain image, a certain flair of being sophisticated, of welcoming and also attracting, being a magnet for people from the intelligence, people from all the world around.
I wanted to give a toast to Ruben and Nubar and Vartan. And I have to say, what you've done tonight and what you're doing is extraordinary. It's about doing the right thing.
I would like to once again mention about our Aurora Gratitude Scholarship, which is sponsored by the IDEA Foundation and Skolomondi Armenia Foundation through the generosity of Ruben Vardanyan and Veronika Zonapend. Very pleased to welcome our distinguished speakers. Ambassador Samantha Power, please.
First, let me thank you all for having us. This is my first trip to Armenia. It's incredibly moving for me to be here, and I really owe it to Ruben and Nubar and Vartan for making this trip and this connection possible. So thank you and congratulations. For the past 3 years, I have had the great privilege of being part of this wonderful Aurora community.
He knew a lot of people, Vardanyan, for some of his conflict resolution work, for example.
We're also, though, deeply engaged in work around the country, including, right here in California, in trying to ensure that.
Ruben has an exceptional quality of building trust and bringing people together around important missions. So that is why all the major initiatives like the UWC Diligent College, like the Aurora Humanitarian Initiatives, these are partnerships, projects. So the same is about Matena, right? Well, knowing Ruben, I would say that his educational projects or investing so much in education comes from his strategic mindset, because he clearly understands that if we are talking about the development of a country, then you have to start from education.
Now we would like to ask our friend Ruben Vardanyan to please come on stage. It is a joy for me to see Ruben and Veronica here tonight.
Ruben Vardanyan is fascinating, together with his wife, Veronika Zonap, in terms of how easy it is to fool the world. He played the game of surrounding himself to the cultural world, distracting and fooling everyone from even looking behind.
I think we are living in a very fragile world. We are living in a world where people don't trust each other, people have a short-term vision about their future, and people really don't understand each other very well.
Russian oligarchs certainly use philanthropy, especially arts philanthropy, to get a way in access to Western elite society. Hope is becoming part, being accepted among the establishment in the West. And best working is art.
It is with Alex Rotter at 400 million. Leonardo Salvatore Mundi selling here at Christie's. $400 million is the bid, and the piece is sold.
The most prestigious art institutions in the West give Russian oligarchs a platform where they could do exactly what Putin wants to most, increase soft power and do cultural hybrid warfare on that front. So while philanthropy is a tool to get refuge in the West, have to place there, it's also a tool to please the Kremlin.
He began to set himself up in the UK, and philanthropy again particularly with a royal flavour. The relationship between Vardanyan and Prince Charles seems to begin actually after the fire at Windsor Castle, when the royal family was raising money to repair the damage, including to the library. And Vardanyan attends a dinner, and as do a number of others, and there's quite a lot of money raised at this dinner. In 2007, Prince Charles decided to save for the nation this beautiful house in Scotland called Dumfries House. And he raises 45 million really fast, overnight, from his own charities, actually, most of it, to buy the house. It's going up for auction. But then the charities are in debt, they need money, the bank accounts are empty, and that's when Vardanyan comes in. And we see that over a period of years, he transfers a total of £200,000 into the Dumfries House collections being made by Charles. And we can trace that money through the laundromat. So we can see that payments are made from a shell company, one of the biggest washing machines in this network of shell companies called Qantas Division. It's registered in the British Virgin Islands, but its bank account is at UKO Bank. And we can see that that money flows from Qantas into the UK and ultimately into supporting Dumfries House. It's extraordinary that money of this origin is finding its way into supporting the lifestyle of a man who then becomes the King of England. So we think most of the money flowing into this laundromat belonged to customers of Troika Bank, the people who ran the bank, like Ruben Vardanyan, and family members and friends, many of them members of the Moscow and St. Petersburg elites. Their directors, their shareholders are essentially ghosts. One or two of them we managed to track down, and one guy, he's not an investment banker. He's just a builder, actually. He's living in an unheated apartment with his parents and his wife in a small city in Armenia, and he's traveling into Russia to work as a construction worker.
Դիմել մարդկանց, բայց կա փաստաթղթեր, որտեղ ձեր ստորագրությունն է դրված։ Ասենք, այս մի պայմանագրում դուք ստացել եք $40 միլիոն մի ընկերությունից։ Կարող եք ասել, ինչ կապ ունի ձեր ստորագրությունը այս փաստաթղթի հետ։
Գաղափար չունեմ, բացարձակ։
Իսկ սա ձեր բանն է, ձեր ստորագրությունն է։ Մի հատ որ նայեք։
Նման է, բայց չէ, մի քիչ սիրուն է, սա իմը սենց չի։ Մի քիչ շատ է խզբզված իմ ստորագրությունը։ Սա ոնց որ սիրուն նկարած է։
And they are certainly not getting any visibility on these transactions that their signature is being used to approve.
One of these investigations says, for example, that Ruben was using the name of common people in Karabakh and put their names on like owners of shell companies, but they didn't know that they are owners of these shell companies.
Yeah, which is completely not true. And this is information that has nothing to do with the reality, but still through a social media and through a fake investigation that can, inject certain people's minds with this misinformation.
Throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, Britain really rolled out the red carpet to Russian money. Huge sums have found their way into the UK from Russia. Money going into football, money going into mansion after mansion in Kensington. Roman Abramovich, one of the key oligarchs of Putin, was a big user of UK financial services. It seems Ruben Vardanyan was as well. Until quite recently, really, until the invasion of Ukraine.
When the invasion happened, there was something how oligarchs are perceived or are allowed to perceive in the West that was quite a cut to former habits. You wouldn't want to be shown with them. You wouldn't send them a dinner party invitation. And it also destroyed, in some cases, their previously very effective philanthropic narrative.
Roman Abramovich has now been added to the UK sanctions list.
Money buys influence, it just does. I mean, particularly in British politics, it does.
Somebody even described London as the biggest money laundering center in the world. And it leads to corruption, it leads to higher property prices. And of course, this is what Russia wants. He wants this. This weaponization of corruption, he wants to export the cynicism. He wants to export this corruption. He wants Western democracies to go into decline.
This war is about that. It's about democracy versus kleptocracy. And the oligarchs are the kleptocrats. They are the face of kleptocracy. We have to track their money and we have to name it for what it is.
But unfortunately, the European economy focused on the profit margins instead of human conscience.
Every dead Ukrainian should be on the conscience of the people who are helping Russia launder their money. You know, these people somehow think it's a victimless crime, but the money is used for the war, and the war is used to kill civilians, and these people have blood on their hands.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Таке відчуття, що кожну хвилину летіло шахеди, і йде на зниження, і бабах-бабах. А потім ми зрозуміли, що це
A lot of countries supporting us, but it's not enough to help Ukraine.
Моє життя перевернулося геть. Його просто не стало.
During the time of war, we are living in stress and we are living in tragedy. We are losing people, we are losing men, we are losing country.
What we are fighting for is right for freedom and right to have a choice to live our own lives.
Ruben Vardanyan in sanctions in Ukraine. They made a lot of investigations, which was in public. And also you can check a lot of interviews of Ruben Vardanyan. He support Russia and his position was against Ukraine.
We understand that Vardanyan is one of the biggest philanthropists of Russian war.
He's officially support Kremlin and Russian aggression against Ukraine.
So Ukraine sanctioned Vardanyan in 2022. Vardanyan was a member of the board of Russian company Volga-Dnieper.
It's a company, how we say, it's Putin wings.
Volga-Dnieper is a Russian holding of cargo air transportation, and Volga-Dnieper helped to get access to the Western microelectronics, to the spare parts for airplanes since 2022, so after the full-scale invasion of Russia.
Planes of this company supply to Russia Federation components, supply shells, artillery shells, supply some materials for explosions. Also, planes of this company were involved in illegal activities of Wagner Group. Also, these planes were involved, for example, in supply of Shahed drones from Iran. Also, they were involved to supply some weapon and some military personnel from Syria and other.
We, as State Watch, prepared an investigation about Volga-Dnieper, and we revealed that since 2014, Volga-Dnieper gave some logistic services to Russian military plant. Of course, it might be an argument for Ukraine to say that this person is a threat to the national security because of its links to the Russian military regime. And because of these activities, Volga-Dnieper was sanctioned by the EU, by the US, and Canada, for example, is trying to seize one of the airplanes which was arrested in Canada in 2022 of Volga-Dnieper. Another argument which might be used is the connection of Vardanyan to Russian holding KAMAZ. KAMAZ is a big company which produces military vehicles, and Vardanyan actually until 2024 had a share in that company.
KAMAZ has a lot of agreement with a lot of Russia military plants, and also KAMAZ supplies their products direct to Russia Ministry of Defense.
КАМАЗ стал известен в мире и продвигается по всему миру. Страна имела возможность перевозить необходимые продукты, необходимые товары, грузы на таких замечательных машинах, которые вы производите.
KAMAZ produces military vehicles for Russian army, produces some platforms for artillery, and some other military vehicles which are used by Russian army.
And Ruben Vardanyan cannot have so connection without close connection with Kremlin, without close connection with Putin.
Владимир Владимирович, я хочу обратиться к вам, как гражданин России. Я всегда пытался быть хорошим гражданином России и делать все, чтобы Россия процветала бы. Я знаю, что вы, как лидер, можете сделать многое.
A lot of Russian oligarchs, Russian businessmen are not under focus still in the EU or the US or the UK.
The war opened possibility to investigate cases against oligarchs and against people around all over the world.
We must sanction people who help Russia, and Ruben Vardanyan is one of people who enable Russia to kill.
You're just helping people to kill Ukrainians, to steal Ukrainian children, to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure, and actually make Ukrainian territory unsafe.
So anybody like Vardanyan who is helping facilitate this Russian effort is certainly complicit in the war crimes that are going on.
He is criminal for Europe, for NATO countries, and for Ukraine. That's why we need to arrest him.
He's sending a lot of Russian propaganda to people and doing it officially. Just remember what he did in Karabakh.
Vardanyan denounced his Russian citizenship before coming to Karabakh.
Ես կանգնած եմ դեր առջև իմ Հայաստանի քաղաքացու անձնագիրը ձեռքս։
Imagine the circumstances. It would have been absolutely impossible for anybody to be able to come to the territory of Azerbaijan, temporarily controlled by Russian peacekeeping forces, without the positive nod or some form of acquiescence from the Kremlin.
Ես տեր եմ այս հողի, ես տեր եմ Հայաստանի, ես տեր եմ հայ աշխարհի։
Ruben Vardanyan did not denounce his passport. This is a complete fake.
You can burn in your passport, but you will not losing your citizenship.
You can't just go to a camera and say, I'm no longer Russian. It doesn't work like that.
He renounced his Russian citizenship because it was a decision from him, because he cannot become, served one country having a citizenship of another country. It's clear for those who are close to Ruben Vardanyan where this desire and motivation came from when he made this bold decision to move to Artsakh, and it has nothing to do with Kremlin.
All connections what Ruben Vardanyan has with Russian military-industrial complex will have result that Ruben Vardanyan will be sanctioned in EU, in USA, and the United Kingdom, and other. And exit from Russian citizenship, it's very good decision for avoid sanction.
He continued to have the share in Russian company KAMAZ until 2024. These two facts do not correlate with each other.
Russian oligarchs are not individual actors. They know that they are captured by the Russian state. The Russian intelligence officers control them. They know that if they don't do what the intelligence officer or what the Kremlin tells them to do, they will either lose their money or they will be killed or they will go to jail.
Well, he arrived in Karabakh in late August, early September 2022. To understand what his real mission might have been during that historic juncture, we need to look at what was happening in this region back during that time juncture. Pakistan-Azerbaijan-Armenian peace process was underway.
So that peace agreement, which is good for everybody in the South Caucasus, it's for everybody, for economic development, for geopolitics.
The Armenian and Azerbaijani leaders once again fully reconfirmed their respect for the other country's territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Azerbaijan and Armenia recognized each other's territorial integrity in Prague. And then Vladimir Putin, in late October, was delivering a speech at Valdai Discussion Club and responding to a question posed by an Armenian journalist, said that the idea of Armenia recognizing Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, including Karabakh, was a very bad idea.
На каком-то этапе договоримся с азербайджанской стороной, отдайте 5 районов. Армянское руководство пошло своим путем. Как известно, это привело к той ситуации, которая сложилась на сегодняшний день. Так называемый Вашингтонский, насколько я себе понимаю, предусматривает признание суверенитета Азербайджана над Карабахом в целом. Но если Армения так считает, пожалуйста.
Vladimir Putin's public statement should be viewed as part of the same picture. And therefore, my very brief and concise answer to your question is that, on the basis of available evidence, indeed, he was sent by Russia, first of all, to derail the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia and the internal dialogue between Baku and Karabakh Armenians. And second, of course, they wanted to use Ruben Vardanyan as a potential competitor to current Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. So in that sense, it was very dangerous.
Ruben Vardanyan was just one in a row of other Armenian oligarchs supported by Russia who were supposed to become a pro-Russian leader of Armenia. he was supposed to come back to Armenia as a hero, as a savior, not of Karabakh, of Armenia, as a Trojan horse of Putin.
Yani o Paşinyan'ı suçluydu, Paşinyan'ı uğursuz ama özünün uğurlu olmasını gösterirdi.
Because for Putin, Pashinyan is like Saakashvili, pro-Western, came to power in a revolution, democratic revolution.
Pashinyan is not somebody that Russia could rely on. Vardanyan would have been a much, much better person. He would have made Armenia completely subservient to Russian interests.
And he was going to use Karabakh as a launching pad to take over in Yerevan, in Armenia.
Բայց Ռուսաստանի քաղաքացի ու բերել Ղարաբաղում ընտրել կամ նշանակել այդ պաշտոնին, դա բերելու է Ադրբեջանի համար դա անընդունելի տարբերակ լինելու, որտեղ դրանով իսկ հասկացնում է, որ Ռուսաստանը ուզում է սառեցնի իրավիճակը եւ շարունակի, եւ դա ընդդիմանալու է Ադրբեջանը, ես դրան կատեգորիկ դեմ եմ եղել եւ բացատրել եմ դրա նախագահային գործով, որ նման սխալ թույլ մի տվեք։ Բայց ցավոք շարունակել են նույնը եւ ինչ-որ բերես ճանապարհի փակում, էկոլոգիայի խնդիր եւ այլն ու բերեն ճգնաժամի։
Mən inanıram ki, Ruben Vardanyan Rusiyanın layihəsi, onun Qarabağda peyda olması, onun orada hərəkətləri, verdiyi bəyanatlara, danışıqlar prosesində olan hadisələrlə üst-üstə gəlməsi və Rusiyanın maraqlarına cavab verən hərəkətlərin həyata keçirilməsi ona deməyə əsas verir ki, Ruben Vardanyan məhz Rusiyanın layihəsi idi. Azərbaycanın Qarabağ ermənilərlə bağlı ideyası ondan ibarət idi ki, biz onları reinteqrasiya edək. Əvvəl ərazini və əhalini. Ruben Vardanyan isə sona qədər mübarizə ideyası ilə ora gəldi. Və hamını əmin edirdi ki, onun arxasında Rusiya var, onun arxasında Putin var, onun arxasında erməni diasporası var. O hər gün dünya mediasına müsahibələr verirdi və hər yerdə bildirirdi ki, Qarabağ erməniləri heç vaxt Azərbaycanın tərkibində olmayacaqdır. Ermənilərə ümid verildi.
Ruben Vardanyan in Nagorno-Karabakh, welcome to Hard Talk.
Look, this guy came to Karabakh and directly started propaganda on the highest level, BBC, France Press, and other.
Mr. Vardanyan, thank you for being with us on France 24.
Big thank you for all French people who support us and the French government. I really feel very warm about your support.
Qarabağ erməniləri daxilində Azərbaycanla müəyyən münasibətdə olan şəxslər var idi. O, onların qarşısını da aldı. Beləliklə, orada parçalanma yarattı.
Do you think that Armenia's fate and future lies with Russia, Putin's Russia?
I don't want to talk about Armenia. We're a separate country. I'm talking about Artsakh. Artsakh don't want to be part of Azerbaijan, which is clear, it's all.
He made it very clear that there's no future for Karabakh Armenians under Azerbaijan jurisdiction. Coexistence between Karabakh Armenians and the rest of the country was utter impossibility, and therefore Armenian forces, to which he referred as self-defense forces, and the Russian peacekeeping forces should have stayed in Karabakh infinitely. That's what he effectively said back then.
Yəni onun bütün məqsədi, bütün fəaliyyəti ondan ibarət idi ki, Rusiya sülhməramlıları, yəni Rusiya ordusu Qarabağda uzun müddətli qalsın və Rusiyanın maraqları bu bölgədə təmin edilsin.
He definitely, during his time in Karabakh, actively talking about the necessity of sustaining separatist endeavor.
He reorganized the local military groups and support them and equip them by the new arms.
We know that some of the foundations established there were involved in funneling certain financial resources into the entrenchment of Armenian military presence in Karabakh. And that was his actively articulated political ambition.
Մենք ենք մեր սարերը, զարգացման գործակալությունը կառույց է, բարեգործական կազմակերպություն է, որը ստեղծվել է 22 թվականի տարեվերջին Ռուբեն Վարդանյանի եւ իր գործընկերների կողմից։ Ամենակարևորը հույս եւ հավատ տվեց եւ վառեց մարդկանց մեջ։
Ruben Vardanyan onlara sona kadar mübarize ideyasını aşılayırdı. Kim buna karşı çıkırdısa onu karşı kampanyalar hayata geçirirdi.
Մենք իրականացնում ենք բարեգործական, սոցիալական, կրթական եւ այլ ծրագրեր։ Ես հակառակ կողմից կարող եմ ասել, որ Ադրբեջանի բոլոր այդ հայտարարությունների գոնե մեկ ապացույց, բացի բառերից, չներկայացվեց։
Our mountains helped a lot with food, with the mobile healthcare centers, with buying electric vehicles for reaching the villages of Artsakh Republic. I mean, this is what our mountain organization is about.
Ruben Vardanyan եթե գալիս ապրկելու 15-20 տարում մի 100 միլիոն գումար կլինի ծախսած այդ երկրի համար, մի բան կլինի $1000 չի ծախսել, ճիշտ հակառակը Ամենիա բանկը դրել անդր ամենաբարձր տոկոսով վարկի, որովհետև ներդրում կարակ մատնանշեք Արցախում ինչ ներդրում արել է արդյոք թե ոչ, ես ձեզ ասում եմ ոչ, հա, եւ 9 ամիս, 10 ամիս շրջափակման մեջ Արցախը 4 հատ հիմնադրամ է բացում եւ այդ հիմնադրամներով հանգանակում է գումարներ ժողովրդից, կոչ անում որ տան, բացի դրանից օրենք է ընդունում կառավարությունով, որ ինչքան որ հանգանակեն, այդքան էլ կառավարության գրպանից դնեն։
Ռուբենը մեկ անգամ ուրեմն ասեց եկեք մենք մի նոր ծրագիր անենք Հակոբ Հավանքի վերականգնման ծրագիր եւ պատկերացրեք մեր զարմանքը եւ մեր դեմքերը երբ որ ինքը այդպիսի ծրագիր ասեց
ու գնում է եկեղեցի վերանորոգման։ Ես ուղղակի արձանագրեցի փաստը։ Ռուբեն Վարդանյանը որպես լիդեր չի կարելի ընդունել, ինքը չի կարող լինել լիդեր, որովհետև ձևի ինքը բիզնեսմեն է, ոչ ավելին, եւ չի կարող պետություն ղեկավարի, շատ հեռու է պետությունից, պետականությունից։ Դա փաստ է, դա իրողություն է, եւ այնպես որ ես տենց այդ դաշտում չեմ էլ դիտարկել իրան։ Դա ժամանակավոր փորձում էին իշխանությունները Արցախի եւ համագործակցելով մի շարք այլ ուժերի հետ այդ քննիները
His presence there in Karabakh was meant to serve the process of sustaining separatism by means of creating economic self-sufficiency.
Vardanyan gelmemiş, Ağdərədə yerləşən böyük qızıl mədən sənayesi kompleksi işləmirdi. Amma Vardanyan gələndən sonra o işə başladı. ve yeniden qanunsuz iqtisadi fəaliyyət oldu.
What he did back then, he effectively started the process of extracting natural resources in Karabakh, to be more precise, copper and molybdenum resources in the mountainous part of Karabakh, and that extracted material then was being transported via the Lachin road to Armenia, and in order to get some gains, of course.
Minaların daşınması, silahın daşınması ve qeyri-qanuni iqtisadi fəaliyyətin təmin edilməsində biz onları suçluyorduk.
We have monitored that in Tamerli, Kızılbulaq mineral deposits of Azerbaijan, illegal exploitation has been intensified. And particularly we have seen that intensified traffic truck shuttles between the Republic of Armenia and also the areas where these mineral deposits have been placed have been further intensified.
Vardanyan gələndə ermənilər sərbəst olaraq Ermənistana gedib gəlirdilər. Amma Vardanyan gələndən sonra Laçın koridorunda bir ekoloji aksiya keçirildi və nəticədə Azərbaycan nəzarət buraxılış məntəqəsini oraya yerləşdirdi.
Vardanyan, by means of his presence in Karabakh, became a common enemy of Azerbaijan and Armenia. President Aliyev made it very clear that with Vardanyan being there in Karabakh, this internal dialogue between Baku and Karabakh would be absolutely impossible.
And we're ready to start practical communications with representatives of Armenian community in Karabakh, and today in front of Secretary Blinken, I told my Armenian colleague about that, but we can do it only when Russian citizen, criminal oligarch, person who was involved in money laundering in Europe, Vardanyan, is out of our territory.
Prime Minister Pashinyan heard his word and exercised some influence, and then Vardanyan resigned from his so-called illegal post.
Of course, he was not just a Kremlin agent, although he was sent here by Kremlin. And he was not a savior of Karabakh. He spent there just a year or so. That was too short. And he was not from Karabakh himself.
You are going nowhere. Is that the message?
I will stay with my people here. Whatever we will face it, we will face together, yes.
He needed to instill that illusion, and that illusion backfired. It backfired in December when there was a protest. It backfired when Azerbaijan established the border checkpoint at the entrance of Lachin Road, and that massively backfired in September when he himself detained whilst trying to leave Azerbaijan's sovereign borders.
On September 27th, 2023, while attempting to covertly leave the territory of the Republic of Azerbaijan,
on suspicions of having committed terrorism-related offense by state border service officials while trying to cross Lachin border crossing from Azerbaijan to Armenia.
he was detained in the Lachin district by officers of the State Border Service of the Republic of Azerbaijan and handed over to the Investigation Department of the State Security Service.
The trial is ongoing at the moment. The charges against Ruben Vardanyan include war crimes, crimes against humanity, terrorism, financing of terrorism, illegal entrepreneurship, participation in criminal organized group, support for illegal organized groups, military groups, and illegal border crossing.
During the investigation, Ruben Vardanyan's mobile phone and tablet were examined and properly documented. During this examination, it was established that on November 11, 2022, he corresponded via the WhatsApp application with Ernest Senatrukovich Arustamyan, a full member of the Russian Engineering Academy, and discussed the acquisition of helicopter-type unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, from the Czech company AnewZ for use by illegal armed formations in the illegal regime called Artsakh, created in the occupied territories of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Ruben Vardanyan then sent the text of this correspondence with Ernest Arustamyan regarding the acquisition of these UAVs, the construction of a factory to produce them, and obtaining technical documentation via the WhatsApp application to Armen Zilavyan, the chief executive of the organization Aurora Humanitarian Initiative Group, of which he was a co-founder. Evidence gathered in the criminal case shows that Ruben Vardanyan compiled named lists of the leaders and members of local self-defense squads, not provided for by the legislation of the Republic of Azerbaijan, which he formed, and whose activities he organized, as well as other armed squads and groups consisting primarily of professional military personnel. Based on these lists, each member of the aforementioned illegal armed formations was paid a monthly salary between $700 and $2,000, depending on the scope of their illegal activities.
During the preliminary investigation, it was also established that on May 18, 2023, Ruben Vardanyan drafted a written plan for conducting military training for persons of various ages in the territories temporarily housing Russian peacekeeping forces. Organized by the grouping called Artsakh Security and Development Front, which he founded and directly led.
Ապրում եմ Ստեփանակերտ քաղաքում, Խանքենդի։ Ես մի քանի ամիս առաջ եղել եմ Բադարագյուղում, գետի մոտ տարել են, ասում են այստեղ լագերա Ռուբեն Վարդանյանը, ու ես մոտորապես իմանում եմ, որ դի բանկա ոչ չի իմացել, որ կարող է Ռուբեն Վարդանյանը այդտեղ լագեր սարքի, ճաշարան սարքի, ջահել մարդկանց, տղաներին, աղջիկներին, ես տեղել եմ, այդտեղ տեսել եմ, բան ամեն ինչ, ես մաշկերոս եմ տեսել, բայց ես մի բան չեմ հասկանում, այ Ռուբեն Վարդանյան, եթե դու եկել ես ժողովրդի լավություն անես, բա եղբայր ջան, ժողովրդին լավություն արա, որ հացես տուելետ հաց տուր, թող ուտեն, կողմ ամեն ձևի պահ է, բա քեզ այդ լագերը։
Based on this plan, Ruben Vardanyan, through the organization We Are Our Mountains, which he founded, collected funds from May to August 2023.
Ինքը եկել է, որ այդ փողերն էլ հավաքի, Երևան մի լավ պաշտոն նստի, եւ այն ձևի անը, որ արդեն վլաստը անցկենա իր կողմը։ Ինքը ինչու արդեն անելու է։ Ոնց է, որ ուզում են դեպուտատ դառնան, մի բան դառնան, ասում են ճանապարհը սարքելու եմ, տունուց սարքելու եմ, ամեն ինչ անելու եմ։ Լավ արդեն ուստում է կրիսլուին, արդեն ամեն ինչ լոխագարակն անում։ Դե ձեմի մի բան։
Funds were collected at different times and in various amounts from the Ruben Vardanyan Foundation, Dilijan Community Center, Aznavour Foundation, IDEA Charity Fund, other funds, organizations, and individuals, including $212,000 in May 2023. Using these funds, through the organization We Are Our Mountains, and under the leadership of the Artsakh Security and Development Front, courses were allegedly arranged. These activities were disguised by presenting information on internet resources about so-called David Beck military sport, strikeball sports competitions, and training on survival skills in extreme conditions.
What is Artsakh Security and Development Front?
Հասարակական շարժում էր, որը ուղղված էր փորձել ստեղծել, որի նպատակն էր հնարավոր դարձնել արցախցիների անվտանգ եւ
But it was given also training, yes, in defense and security, right?
Ոչ, որևէ անվտանգության, այսինքն որևէ զինվորական ուղղվածություն ինքը չուներ, ինքը հասարակական միավորում էր, որը այսպես ավելի շուտ
This is from your social media. This is something like David Beck games project. What is exactly this?
Եվ Դավիթ Բեկյան խաղերը դա հայտնի այսպես նախաձեռնություն է, դա իրականացնում է ոչ միայն Արցախում, եւ դա վերաբերվում է երեխաներին կամ բարձրադասարանի երեխաներին.
There are photos being taken from the Instagram of the photographer that was working in one of David Beck initiatives, yes, games, and yes, there are children involved. This is the kind of evidence that is being shown.
Շատ իսկապես շատ լավ հնարավորություն է միգուցե այս հատակ օգտագործել դրա համար։ Ես այդ առումով չեմ ասում, որ դա չկար Արցախում, բայց ես ուզում եմ ասել, որ նախ Դավիթ Բեկյան խաղերի ժամանակ չկար իսկական զենք, դա միանշանակ է, որովհետև իրանք քանի որ այդ
Anyway, you said that in David Beck games there were no real weapons. I want you to see this video that is in internet also.
Չէ, ուղղակի հենց շատ լավ է, որ ցույց տվեց, որովհետև այդ դեպքում իրենց ապացույցները շատ թույլ են։ Տեսեք, այսպիսի ես քանի որ իմ կյանքում շատ եմ տեսել հրաձիգ, այսպիսի հրաձիգ չի լինում։
So they're not real weapons?
No, բնականաբար ոչ, եւ բոլորը կարող են հաստատել, որ դա իսկական զենք չի։ Ինքը հայրենասիրական մարտավարական խաղ, այդտենց կարող ենք անվանել ու հենց այդպես էլ վերաբերվում ենք եւ դա շատ կարևոր գործողություն է ինք համարում մենք եւ Ռուբենը, որովհետեւ մենք մտածում ենք եւ հիմա էլ ենք շարունակում մտածել, որ երեխաներին պետք է հայրենասեր եւ իր հայրենիքը պաշտպանելու ունակ գաղափարով մեծացնես.
It can be a youth camp, right?
Yes, sure. I mean, you know, it's we are talking about not recognized, but anyway, a state. So everything can happen there, any kind of activities of games, preparations. But the important thing that the connection with Ruben Vardanyan and his accusations are simply out of any logic and they are completely senseless. I mean,
No, but this is being used.
yeah, I know.
This is actually here we have Ruben.
Yeah.
It looks like a youth gun.
Yeah, sure. I even recognize what photograph is this. This is effectively a youth camp, and youth camp, you can have also certain certain preparations of self-defense for sure. And you can have pictures, people getting prepared for self-defense for any imaginary, enemy. It's not necessarily about Azerbaijan or any other countries. And this kind of games could be interpreted as preparing for war, and it's ridiculous, of course. And if this is a picture with a real gun that are holding, and this is a real picture, if everything is true, of course, this is something that should not be accepted. And this has nothing to do with Ruben Vardanyan.
Եթե Ռուբեն Վարդանյան քուր սիրտը ցավում է այս ազգի համար, դու մեղր ար չեմիչար շագալատ արբեր ժողովուրդ են պիշենի ոչ թա դու զենք եւ դար մալաջոժի սովորացրու գրիվ یا ավտոմատ քանդիլ հուակել ոնց են ասում չի կարելի դու մի կողմանի մտածիր ոչ թա ոնց են ասում դու ցերեկը ժողովուրդ են ասում որ ամենը չլավ ալինելու լավ են խապրելու այսպես բայց գիշերը դու մին ուրիշ տեղ դու լագեր ես բացում ջահելներին տանում այնտեղ սովորեցնում մինա դնելը ավտոմատ ոնց են ասում քանդիլ հվակելը կամ ում է պետք չէ իմանում ճիշտ է դա
None of criminal charges against Ruben Vardanyan is of political nature. He has been charged with offenses, concrete offenses, based on sufficient evidence, and his case has been referred to the court for trial. The accused enjoys all rights enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan and Code of Criminal Procedure of Azerbaijan, besides international legal instruments. Ruben Vardanyan has been provided with a translator, a lawyer, and he enjoys all rights available on par with any other accused.
We know about this situation, and he is now in Azerbaijan. So if nothing will happen, I think Ukraine have the right to make an appeal to international court to make him responsible for the financing of terrorism and aggression against Ukraine.
Injustice is the easiest way to describe what's happening right now with Ruben Vardanyan. To me, the current events, the illegal arrest, is a global shame. Why it's a global shame? Because he's a global leader.
People like him must be punished in any way. It doesn't matter where he will be punished. Will it be Azerbaijan, Ukraine, United States, or any European country? He must be punished.
When it comes to detention conditions of Ruben Vardanyan, he enjoys all the rights, which include making phone calls to his family. He is able to use detention facility amenities such as medical unit, gym, and library. Since the criminal case has been referred to the court and open hearings are being held, media observes and reports on the hearings from the courtroom. The Prosecutor General's office does not interfere with the process. If the accused is not satisfied with the judgment, he will be able to use his right to appeal within 20 days being served with it.
When Ruben Vardanyan was nominated to the Nobel Peace Prize, we were shocked.
Killing Ukrainians, killing and stealing Ukrainian children with dual-use technologies, with dual-use cargo. Now he's nominating to Nobel Prize. It's not strange, it's really stupid.
We are living in a surrealism world. Because from one side, he killing a million of people, from the other side, he can be a peaceman. How it's possible? It's insane.
He's not a peacemaker, he's a war maker.
The idea that Ruben Vardanyan could win the Nobel Peace Prize is, of course, a joke. This was a way to distract attention from the trial in Azerbaijan, and also to kind of encourage some sympathy for him, because he's on trial in Azerbaijan and he probably will be convicted. The evidence against him is very strong.
A lot of my colleagues, we signed a paper and we sent it to the Nobel Committee and asked them to remove this person from the list.
These oligarchs pay these lobbyists and public relations people to try to improve their image, try to give them sympathy. For me, this is corruption. But of course, it's called political consultancy and lobbying in the West. And that's what this was. This was a political stunt.
In the example of Ruben Vardanyan, both Azerbaijan and Armenia realized that ultimately, had he succeeded in Karabakh, he would have endangered the prospect of the government in Yerevan as well.
I hope that Armenian government will understand it and never continue to do this. And I think Ruben Vardanyan is not presenting all Armenian people. He's only one who helped Putin to continue the war against Ukraine, and he must be punished.
Vardanyan layihəsinin puça çıxması nəticədə Rusiyanın sülh məqamlarına bir il öncə 2025-ci ildə deyil, 2024-cü ildə getməsinə səbəb oldu.
That's why all of these are, as I think, a very strong evidence that Ruben Vardanyan is not a real Armenian man. He's a Russian man.
He damaged the prospects of local Armenian population, that goes without saying, because had he not arrived in Karabakh, I imagine some sort of internal dialogue between Baku and local Armenians would have been possible.
O öz hərəkətləri ilə Qarabağ ermənilərinə daha çox ziyan vurdu, nəinki xeyir verdi.
Ես իմ կարճ խելքავს ուզում եմ ոնց են ասում, մի բան ասեմ։ Ուզում եմ բան ասեմ։ Մեր Ղարաբաղը լուզանը։ Եթե չլինեն Ռուբեն Վարդանյանի նմանները, ուշ կռիվ կլինի։
Big, beautiful honor to welcome everyone to the White House for this very historic peace summit between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
It's a day which will be remembered by the people of Azerbaijan with a feeling of pride and gratitude.
Now, for the first time in history, Azerbaijan and Armenia have this brilliant opportunity, completely, unequivocally, to put an end to their decades, a century of conflict, animosity, and hostility, and to have a bright future. The peoples of both countries deserve this bright future. And this opportunity should not be missed. As some Armenian colleagues of mine say, it will be crime against humanity if this opportunity is missed, and I hope it will not happen.
Nəticədə ən böyük zərbəni bizim ölkələr görür. Biz çalışmalıyıq, müstəqil olaq, öz marağımızı düzgün anlayaq və barış içində, sülh içində yaşayaraq bir-birimizi dəstəkləyək, bir-birimizə qarşı olmayaq.
Գրի բար չլինի։ Մեր դուշմանները թա Ռուբեն Վարդանյանն, թա ովա, թող դրան գնան իրենց դարդել։ Մուք մեր հողումով